Hey YouTube, it's me, it's Kjackice, I'm back. And today we're going to be talking about, why Snowflake and Safe Space are bad. Let's jump right in. Now, to quickly dive into this, because a lot of people have already made videos on this, and they've already expressed their opinions, and some of them range from completely rational to entirely irrational for the sake of stirring up some type of drama. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna try to do that. I'm gonna just try to talk about it genuinely from my point of view and what I feel like they did wrong. Now, if you don't know what has happened, Marvel has announced a new superhero team that is sort of a reboot to an older superhero, or older version of a superhero team called the New Warriors. Not a lot of people nowadays know what that is, and to be honest, I don't either. And I've read quite a few comics in my day, and I still do read comics, but I didn't too much care about that team back then, and little did I know, a lot of heroes I like started in that original New Warriors team, and they're trying to do it again with this, because the whole core idea of the New Warriors has pretty much always been a new generation of heroes to champion the ideas of the current, young adults generation, teenagers into young adults type generation, and give people around my age and, somebody to be able to say, hey, that's me, or hey, that looks like me, or, we experience the same things, I can relate. Basically, do what most writers want to do and give the reader or viewer a character to imprint on easily. And this is where things can get kind of slippery. As they like to say, this is a slippery slope. But in an actual sense, because when you try to create a character with the intentions of allowing the viewer, reader, listener, whatever you may be, or however you may be experiencing the media, you try to create a character that the viewer can imprint on easily. You tend to border between pandering and writing a non-existent character, basically a fill-in-the-blanks type character. And a lot of people don't like those characters. They don't like characters that they can 100% always agree with, because it gets to a point where they may not be written that well for that to be a thing. A good character should allow you to imprint on them, at the same time cause some sort of self-reflection, may it be intentional or even unintentional. It is a good sign of a good character. I know a character that I actually do like a lot is Kjackice from Diamond is Unbreakable JoJo Part 4. And the reason I like Kjackice is because he has a lot of similarities to the average day-to-day lifestyle that I would like to live one day, and he's an otherwise hard worker who has a steady routine and for the most part upholds a pretty clean moral code. Minus the whole murder and hand fetish thing, but we're gonna put that to the side for now. I relate to all of the average aspects of Kjackice from a point of view of somebody who would love to live that type of lifestyle. A big house, pretty good at their job, dedicated to what they do, and just, not necessarily the brightest star, but definitely doing my part type of lifestyle. Going into the bad stuff with Kjackice's character, he's got an weird, insatiable addiction to murder and hands, specifically women or female hands, and there's not really much he can do about that. It's shown that he tries to suppress those urges to live a normal life, so he doesn't have to deal with police officers and all of the abnormalities of a man who has the tendencies of a murderer. And Kjackice in a sense, is the character that people can attach themselves to, because at the end of the day, he's still acting on his insane urges that every person gets, and somehow balancing these murderous urges with a pretty mundane day-to-day lifestyle. It's relatable and not relatable at the same time. So people look for these things in characters regardless of if they're trying to see it or not. And the issue with creating a character that somebody can very easily imprint on, or a character that seems like a blank slate, is that you will get the criticism of it being a pandering method to gather new viewers or a bigger audience. And it's not wrong to assume that big corporations want to do this to get more sales, because that is the point of a corporation. Their whole objective is to make money. A lot of issues in today's society can very easily be fixed by changing some of the optics or the way that people perceive things. And the media and things like television, music, and movies are very, very effective ways of convincing people to consider certain things and feel like other things are cool and acceptable, because at the end of the day, we're a group of people or a species that thrives off of interaction, and the quickest way to get interaction is to be extremely likable. And how do you become extremely likable? By being all of the things that people want, whatever those things may be in that current time. This is why certain celebrities are extremely popular and accepted by people, and those same celebrities can have a handful of people that doubt their genuine nature. And I say that to say this, leading me back into Snowflake and Safe Space. Personally, I don't feel like Snowflake and Safe Space are bad. I think that the way that they were presented is bad. I feel like if Marvel had shown off the character designs in their names and gave people room to infer or try to piece together who they are, then you wouldn't have as much of an issue or a blowback because of this. But instead, Marvel went the patting themselves on the back, self-flating way of saying, hey, we've done something revolutionary. You should be praising us, because if it wasn't for us, you would be nowhere type of way of handling this. They could have just as easily announced this as the new Warriors for this current generation, and left it up to the readers and people interested to see whether or not they would like these characters. Because what happened was Marvel gave people a way to attach themselves to one small minute aspect of the character's design or the character's personality, specifically being in the new Warriors case, specifically being Snowflake and Safe Space. Mostly Snowflake though, because Snowflake is the special one out of the two. They are non-binary, meaning that they go by they, them pronouns, and they do not necessarily conform to any gender stereotypes. And with them being non-binary, it makes it really easy for those that don't like the idea of LGBT representation. And I will say, the people on the fence, a majority of the time, are not there because they hate the LGBT or any sort of representation. They just don't like the idea of this congratulations, you are now instantly special type of mindset. And this also comes in a very ironic way, where the character's name is Snowflake, which has been a term for people who want to be special in a crowd of the same faces, and that term has been being used since 2013, and I think even earlier, but it really rose in popularity around the point where SJW was considered an insult and anti-SJW was a way of thinking. So it's very ironic, but I also see that's the point they're trying to make. But they couldn't have messed up their point so perfectly than in the way that they presented these characters. Every other character seems like an outdated attempt to try to relate to a younger audience, and that isn't necessarily bad. Sometimes those attempts do end up being successful, and sometimes they only require a small amount of tweaking. I feel like Trailblazer, B Negative, and Screen Time are all fine designs besides some things that I would tweak here and there. I don't necessarily think they're much of an issue in this whole thing, rather than the presentation from Marvel. I think that's really what's been happening here. That's my opinion. I don't find them that bad looking, because like all things in comic books, you know, characters in comic books die hundreds of times over, and it's only slightly temporary. There is no permanence in comic books unless you're thinking about the infinite timelines that exist and the infinite universes that exist in comic books that kind of validate permanence and don't at the same time. If you're thinking of that, then fine, technically that is permanence, but in, you know, not thinking continuity wise, there is no such thing as a permanent decision in a comic book. Things run their course and they get changed and reinvented and redesigned, and that's just how things work, because for as long as time will go on, a story will continue to be retold in new ways. And the same thing will go with comic books. I feel like all of these characters' designs are going to eventually end up being redone, and people will enjoy them. But for now, this was a very, very poorly done attempt at trying to pander, or what seems like pander, because I do feel like there are some writers at Marvel that genuinely care about this stuff, and I would love to see more well thought out representation, but for now it seems like this is all we're gonna get from Marvel. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I wanted to make a video on this because it seems like this is a lot more than just SJW stuff, because I think we're getting to a point where we're seeing that radical ideas are the enemy. Radicalist ideas and censorship and all of this stuff are the enemy, not somebody whose heart is in the right place, looking for everyone to be equal or looking to protect people or stuff like that. They're not the enemy, but more so they become the enemy when they get to the point where they demand these things, and they feel like becoming radical and violent and all that stuff is the issue. I'm sure Marvel has been getting a lot of death threats and all types of stuff because of this, and we have to remember that somebody, a person, came up with this. It would be a lot better to just give them feedback, and if they say they don't want it, then let them realize that their decision was probably not the best. I would like to see this new team be actually fleshed out and become more than just their character descriptions, because there have been points in time where a character is revealed, a new comic book character, a character in anything is revealed, and people feel like that is enough. Like the fact that there was an LGBT character in Pixar's Onward, and just about everyone automatically assumed, oh, well, this is pandering. But in reality, Pixar and Disney have been doing that for quite a while. Their genuine attempts at actual representation go overlooked because the audience that is paying attention to that stuff does not care about their tries. But that's on a later subject. I'm sure something will happen in the future that'll make me talk about that. But that was just an example. A lot of corporations pander, and that's a big reason why people are mad. So that's pretty much all I have to say on this. That's my opinion. I feel like these are bad not because of what they are, but because of how they were presented, and that's it. Now, if the first issue of this comes out and it turns out that they are just one-dimensional characters for the sake of pandering, or in a positive turn, they're actually really well-written characters, That's asking a lot, I know, to have 5 well-written characters in their debut comic. But if it turns out that even if some of them are well-written, that's good enough. But if all of them turn out to be poorly done, then that means that this very much was what everybody was mad about and feared, and it was a shot-in-the-dark pandering attempt to see how many initial sales they can get from giving people something that they want, but on a cardboard plate with red paint and some sawdust sprinkled on top of it. It's technically what you asked for, but definitely not with the love and care that you would want. So, I think that's basically it. I've got more content coming up soon, varying stuff. I don't want to lock myself into anything, because I've seen the effects of being a one-trick pony on YouTube, and those people aren't doing too well. So, thanks for watching, and remember to stay cool. Until next time.